I'm Dale Carden, the Senior Advisor at the U.S. U.A.E. Business Council. I'm pleased to introduce a new episode of our latest digital series, The Council Talks COP28. In this series, we speak to representatives of American companies who are championing sustainability and playing a vital role in supporting COP28 in the UAE. In this new episode, we interview Roger Martella, GE's Chief Sustainability Officer. Roger speaks to us about the growing demand for electrification and the benefits of decarbonization. We also hear from Roger about the role that GE is playing in paving the way as an American company towards an impactful COP28. Now, over to Roger.
GE has a unique role in addressing climate change and the energy transition as a provider of technology and as an innovator of the technologies for the next generation. We help generate 1/3 of the world's energy in 170 countries. And simply stated, we have two goals. We want to decarbonize the energy sector while also electrifying the planet at the same time. And we think both of these goals are critical. We have a very unique role in decarbonizing the energy sector to address the urgency of climate change, but also growing access at the same time to more electricity to make people's lives better. Energy security is increasingly the driver of innovation and technology, from weather events, cybersecurity, the growing demand on electrification, the need to decarbonize other sectors by connecting them to the grid. We're seeing energy security electrification as really the driver, but that brings along with it decarbonization benefits and climate change benefits. So our role is as the innovator, as a technology provider. We have one of the world's most unique and diverse portfolios of renewable energy equipment, gas power equipment, grid, both physical grid tools, digital grid tools, nuclear technologies, and investing in the breakthrough technologies of tomorrow. And we approach all this with a very global lens. We know there's no one size fits all when we're working around the world. And we want to focus on not only decarbonization, but building energy security, building electrification, building the right foundation, and then helping countries work on their pathways to decarbonize while they make their grids more reliable. This is an era of partnerships, and the world's largest companies who are engaged in this space need to partner with each other and with the public sector in order to succeed. So we wanted to set an example of companies being part of the solution and coming together. So our coalition, Citizens, is really a group of diverse companies that are focused on this theme of innovation and technology to help countries achieve their net zero goals. So it includes General Motors, Honeywell, Bechtel, Johnson Controls, Invenergy, and GE, each leading innovators in their own sectors and a diverse group of sectors to help contribute to the solutions. Our goal is we want to be a constructive voice together towards support for policies, support towards partnerships, towards technologies, and sharing the role of innovation globally, not just in the US, but making sure that we have, as multinational companies, the opportunity to roll out these solutions and influence positive solutions globally. Increasingly, as we talk about climate change, as we talk about the role of technology, we don't think it's enough anymore to just build it somewhere and ship it and deploy it in the UAE or in other countries. We want the whole world invested in the supply chain. We want the world invested in manufacturing and engineering, in leadership in the space. And so what the MOU does is really help enable that. It's a step towards this goal of having the whole world invested in the innovation and the whole supply chain and the benefits that come along with that. Our near-term purpose is really to inspire the next generation of leaders towards wanting to solve the energy transition. We know this is going to take decades. While we're trying to lay the strongest foundation today, it's going to be the next generation tasked with implementing these solutions. So the MOU aims to inspire college students, high school students, even younger students from all around the world, focused on diversity, on women, and making sure that everybody feels that they're part of the solution. UAE's hosting of COP28 is going to lead to the most significant, the most impactful, I'd argue the most historic COP since the Paris Agreement itself. It's something we call the UAE Effect. COP is not the end. It's really more of the beginning for the UAE, and the UAE emerging on the world stage as what we see as kind of one of the top leaders in the world. If we look historically at the US and the EU, I think historically seen as leaders in climate change and the energy transition, I think we're seeing the UAE emerge right now through COP28 and into the future as kind of the third major leader in the decarbonization space. And that's something that's very much welcomed. We certainly see the UAE as perhaps the country that's acting, I'd say, with the most purpose driven focus on the energy transition. There's a real sense of urgency, almost like you don't hear from almost anywhere else. The real sense of urgency is palpable, and there's the swift action and investment to really back it up, which is a unique combination. We also expect COP28 to elevate the role of companies in committing to deploy the technology and innovation needed. I think the UAE is going to be a very strong advocate on the role of companies and holding companies accountable in partnership with governments. And this is a fundamental change, the recognition that if we're going to really solve for climate, we have to adopt a business mindset with that type of accountability and that type of action and those investments. And then I think the last thing we see that the UAE is doing, which is a really fundamental game changer, is they have taken the historic narrative on climate change, which has been seen as anti-competitive, the notion that one country is shy to commit because they're worried about other countries committing, to really making climate change and the energy transition a competitive advantage and investing in their economy, betting their future on the technology and innovation to come. So I think they've fundamentally changed the narrative on the economic opportunities to address climate change. We certainly think Dr. Sultan Al Jaber has been an inspiring leader. We think he's absolutely the right person for the job. And as more people see him in action and get to see not just his words, but the steps he's taking, I think they're gonna recognize what we're seeing is that his leadership is gonna lend to this being the most impactful COP since the Paris Agreement. We're in a new era where I think we're seeing more of a focus on industry and companies leading the energy transition, but being enabled by government. And this is something that U.S. Department of Energy Secretary Granholm has said frequently, that the energy transition is going to be led by industry, but enabled by the government. And this theme of partnership has just been a fundamental transformation of the last, frankly, 12 to 18 months, I think largely in part of partnership with the UAE, where we see much more of the private sector and the public sector working collaboratively towards the same goals, much more of a partnership approach than in the past. And what's really interesting about this is you have both sectors kind of doing what it does best. You have the government working now to create incentives to de-risk environments, to promote partnerships that bring this type of certainty that businesses like and thrive in order to invest. And you see companies kind of seizing that momentum and deploying technology, building factories, training the next generation of leaders, and really making sure that they're riding the wave of the incentives that the governments are creating and the opportunities that the governments are creating from de-risking the environments. The Inflation Reduction Act in the US is a really good example of this. It's a climate change law, the first in the US, that is an incentives approach. It's driving demand for technology, for supply chain, for training. We're building factories in the US as a result of it, but we also want to build factories in other places in the world that drive similar outcomes. And so we look forward to working with governments on the types of policies that will lead to similar outcomes, similar opportunities for renewable energy, for breakthrough technologies, for infrastructure, and for factories, for supply chain, and for workforce.